Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So Creed 3 was recently released in theaters this past Friday and I had the pleasure of watching it. So this video is full of spoilers, so there's your warning right there. There's a lot to unpack in this film and I just wanted to talk about everything. This time around, we see that Adonis, he is living a great life. He has retired from boxing and he has a great family, a beautiful daughter. We saw in Creed 2 that he had a baby daughter born, so she's a little bit older in this one this time around. And he has an old childhood friend named Damien who was recently released from prison, come back into his life, and he's basically our antagonist for this film. So when Damien first comes around, you kind of feel sorry for him. You see that this is a man who, he made a bad decision when he was a child and he lost out on a lot. And you really do feel for him. And I think Jonathan Majors did a great job at conveying that feeling towards the audience. Like you feel, man, this guy really lost a lot. And you kind of hope that he can get back somewhat of what he lost. And for a minute there, it kind of felt like this was his story. Even though we weren't seeing it from necessarily from his point of view, they spend a lot of time with Damien, and you, like I said, you really feel what he is going through, and you feel the loss that he's experienced in his life, and so you do feel sorry for him. But some things do transpire. As with any movie, some drama has to happen. Honestly, if you've seen any Rocky movie, they all follow a specific formula. And this movie really isn't that different. First of all, I have to say I highly enjoyed this movie. I feel like this was probably my favorite out of the whole Creed franchise. The first one is a classic only because it is the start and we get to see the relationship between Adonis and Rocky and also his father, Apollo, develop in this movie. But this third film was just a masterpiece. Even though I enjoyed this movie, there were definitely predictable moments. Like I said, they followed the Rocky formula. The boxer has to be someone that we don't like. You don't want to feel sorry for him. You're supposed to be rooting for Adonis, so he has to be the bad guy. So when we find out, oh, he is responsible for Drago's hand getting hurt, then you're like, okay, yeah, he's the bad guy, so we're not supposed to be rooting for him. I was definitely not surprised when his mother, played by the wonderful Phylicia Rashad, I knew she was going to pass away because our boxing protagonist really needs that driving force. Something has to happen or someone has to pass away for them to get that motivation to really never give up and fight to the end. The chemistry and the friction and tension that you feel between Adonis and Damien were done perfectly. These two actors have great acting skills and they were great playing off of each other. They had great chemistry and you felt the hate and the hurt between them, and I think they executed their roles very well. All that pity that you may have had for Damien went out the window, and you really wanted to see Adonis beat him. Going back to Jonathan Majors, you see him come in as this humble, somewhat unsure person who just wants a second chance at life and the dream that they had when they were younger. But then the moment when you find out who he really is and you see that switch and he changes his character, Jonathan Majors really is like a chameleon. Like I said in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumanium review regarding Jonathan Majors, he really is a chameleon. Like he was able to switch from this pitiful person into this villainous role. Some of the other things I like in the final fight during the last few rounds, we have this beautiful image where the crowd is completely taken away. The screams, the yells, everything is taken away. And we get this image of an empty arena and it's just the two of them. And we see basically it's them fighting their past. It's not even that they're fighting each other. They are fighting their past. We see that there's one of the beds from their group home. There's prison bars on one side, and they're both fighting against what happened to them in their past. And I think that was very beautifully done. And the audio that is played during this scene fit very well. And it made you really feel that both of them really had nothing to lose at that point. They were both, again, not fighting with each other. They were fighting with the past that they had been dealing with their entire lives. And that was probably my favorite part of this whole film. And I wish they kept that to the very end of of the fight. Another thing that I like, there's always a montage training session in all of these Rocky movies, the Creed movies. That is a staple. There has to be a montage when our hero is training to beat our antagonist and the antagonist is training to beat our hero. And we see that Drago is helping Adonis spar to help him prepare for what's to come with his fight with Damien. And it was nice to see the two of them together. And I was thinking of, there could possibly be a friendship that develops there, like it did with Rocky and Apollo. They started out as enemies and they fought each other, but they had a mutual respect and they actually ended up becoming friends. And so I would love, if they do a fourth Creed movie, to see that friendship develop with Drago and Adonis. I would love to see that personally. Now, I did mention that, there were some cliched moments that I wasn't surprised at, but I think one of the other things I didn't like so much was there were a lot of jump cuts during the initial boxing scene between the two of them before we get to that scene where the crowd disappears. I feel like with the Rocky movies, and even with the first two Creed movies, there were long shots of them boxing and fighting, and it wasn't like cinematic. It was supposed to make you feel that it was real. So I do feel like they did a little too many jump cuts with the first few rounds of them fighting. Now, Rocky is not in this film. I will say that this film definitely holds its own without Rocky being involved. We know we would not have these movies without Sylvester Stallone and Rocky. We would not have Adonis being who he is without the help of Rocky from the first two movies. With that being said, the first two movies did still feel like it was somewhat telling Rocky's story still. In the first movie, it's about Apollo Creed's son, and Rocky is helping Adonis to deal with knowing who his father is and trying to be a boxer. And then in the second movie, we're still dealing with Drago and his father, who fought Rocky after he killed Apollo. It still had to do with Rocky's past. This one completely steps outside of Rocky and has no connection to anything from his past. However, Rocky and Sylvester Stallone were definitely missed in this film. I would have loved to have seen maybe at the end of the movie, Adonis gets a call from Rocky, or he calls Rocky to tell him, how everything went, or Rocky calls him to tell him he's proud of him. Even if they use like stock footage or old audio of Sylvester Stallone from the previous Rocky movies or Creed movies, just to have him still there. He wasn't mentioned at all or acknowledged at all, and I think that was definitely unfortunate. Now, the reason Sylvester Stallone was not in this movie had nothing to do with the plot of the movie. It had nothing to do with Michael B. Jordan or Jonathan Majors or anything. It was a personal reason towards one of the producers in the film. Sylvester Stallone said he would not work with this producer, and so he took himself out of being involved with the film. Hopefully, maybe in the fourth one, if they make another one, that he can be involved somehow, because, there would be no Creed movies without Sylvester Stallone. And I think they showed that Adonis stepped out of Rocky's shadow when, instead of running up, the steps of the art museum to the Rocky statue, Adonis, who lives in LA, he is more familiar with LA. This is where he basically has grown up and where he lives now. He runs up the hills to the Hollywood sign. And so seeing that, I was like, oh, this is Adonis' movie. This is not Rocky anymore. It's not set in Philly, even though I miss the Philly setting and some of the aspects of Philly being shown in there. This is Adonis Creed's movie. This is Adonis Creed's journey. And so he's not going to run up the Rocky steps like he did in the first film. He was going to run up a place that is more meaningful to him, which was to the Hollywood sign. I do recommend you guys see this film. It is a great story, even though there are some cliched moments, which that is to expect from any of the movies in this franchise, in the Rocky franchise. But for the acting alone, just to see the two of them, especially Jonathan Majors, acting against each other and just seeing what he went through, what he goes through in this film, and we see Adonis growing even a little bit more. So guys, that was my review for Creed 3. Go check it out, and also keep an eye out for those fan casts. They are coming out soon, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye guys.